Have you ever felt a silence so profound that you could almost hear the world breathe? A quiet moment in a forest, by the sea, or in the deep of night, where the veil between our world and another seems thin enough to touch. What if I told you that this silence is not empty, but filled with a language we have long forgotten? A language of whispers on the wind, of meanings in the songs of birds, of entire civilizations crying out from beneath our feet. This is the language of creation itself. And there once walked a man, a king of unimaginable wealth and power, who did not command this world through force, but by listening to its secret voice. We speak of King Solomon, Sulaiman, a name that echoes through millennia, synonymous with wisdom. But his true power was not in his gold, his armies, or his famed temple. It was in a gift so extraordinary it borders on myth, the ability to understand the speech of animals, to command the winds, and to marshal spirits unseen. This was not magic as we understand it, a trick of smoke and mirrors. It was a profound state of unity with the divine order, a harmony so complete that the barriers between species, between elements, and between worlds simply dissolved. The stories tell of a king who would halt his entire magnificent army to heed the warning of a tiny ant. They speak of a man who ruled not only over humanity, but over legions of Jinn, the beings of smokeless fire, who built for him wonders beyond mortal craft. Is this mere legend, a fairy tale for children? Or is it a sacred memory, a pointer to a potential hidden deep within the human soul? A reminder that the greatest kingdom we can ever rule is the one found not by conquering the world, but by understanding our place within it. Join me as we journey back in time, beyond the veils of history and legend. We will seek the hidden truth of Solomon's power, not as a historical artifact, but as a living wisdom. We will explore the sacred scriptures that chronicle his life, listen to the echoes of his wisdom in the words of mystics and sages from across the globe, and ask a question that resonates even today. What does it truly mean to listen? And if we were to still our own minds long enough, what secrets might the world whisper to us? This is the quest to understand the prophet who spoke to animals and the hidden power that lies in perfect submission to the symphony of existence. Our journey begins not on a throne of gold, but in a sun-scorched valley, where a vast, glittering army comes to a sudden and inexplicable halt. Picture the scene: thousands of soldiers, human and otherwise, their armor glinting, their banners flapping in the hot breeze. At their head rides King Solomon, his gaze not fixed on the horizon of conquest, but directed downwards, a gentle smile playing on his lips. His generals are confused, his troops are restless. Why have they stopped? There is no visible enemy, no obstacle in their path. The order to halt came directly from the king, a silent gesture of his hand. And he is listening. Not to his advisors, not to the trumpets of war, but to a voice so small it would be lost to any other ear on earth. The Quran, in the chapter aptly named The Ant, An-Naml, recounts this extraordinary event. As Solomon's procession approached a valley, an ant saw the mighty host and cried out to her colony, "O ants, enter your dwellings, lest Solomon and his soldiers crush you while they perceive not." It was a cry of panic, of leadership, of a tiny creature trying to save her people from imminent, unthinking destruction. To any other conqueror, this would have been nothing, a soundless drama played out in the dust. But Solomon heard it. He understood not just the sound, but the meaning, the fear, the responsibility in that minuscule voice. And what was his reaction? Did he display his power with a grand, earth-shaking miracle? No. The scripture says he smiled, amused by her words. His response was one of profound humility and gratitude. He turned not to his army, but to God and prayed, My Lord, enable me to be grateful for your favor, which you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and to do righteousness of which you approve, and admit me by your mercy into the ranks of your righteous servants. In this single moment, the entire nature of Solomon's power is revealed. It is not the power of dominance, but the power of perception. It is not the authority of a tyrant, but the mercy of a guardian. He recognized the ant as a subject of God's kingdom, just as he was. He saw her community as a nation with its own right to exist, its own leader, its own fears, and he honored that. He did not see an insect to be crushed. He saw a life to be protected. This story is the perfect key to unlocking the mystery of Solomon. His ability was not a mere parlor trick, a linguistic curiosity. It was the result of a heart so pure and so attuned to the Creator that it could perceive the divine spark in all of creation. He understood that every creature, from the mightiest lion to the humblest ant, exists in a constant state of glorifying its Maker. Their language, therefore, is a form of prayer, a constant stream of communication with the divine. By being granted access to this communication, Solomon was not just learning to talk to animals, he was being allowed to listen in on the constant, universal prayer of the cosmos. This is the first layer of his hidden power, the profound empathy and humility that comes from recognizing the sanctity of all life. It is the wisdom to know that a true king is not one who is served, but one who serves all of God's creation. The sacred texts of both Islam and Judaism paint a portrait of Solomon as a figure uniquely blessed by God, a king whose reign was marked by unprecedented peace, prosperity, and supernatural wisdom. The foundations of his story are built upon the rock of divine revelation. The Quran and the Bible, while differing in certain details and theological emphasis, converge on the central theme of Solomon as a recipient of extraordinary divine favor. In the Quran, Solomon's story is woven through several chapters, emphasizing his role as a prophet king, Nabi Malik. He is presented as the heir to his father, Dawood, who was also a prophet. The Quran explicitly states, "And we had certainly given to David and Solomon knowledge, and they said, 'Praise be to Allah, who has favored us over many of his believing servants.' And Solomon inherited David. He said, 'O people, we have been taught the language of birds, and we have been given from all things. Indeed, this is evident bounty.'" An-Naml 15-16. This verse is crucial. The knowledge is a direct gift, a divine bestowal, not something achieved through human effort alone. It establishes his ability to understand creation not as an anomaly, but as a core part of his prophetic mission. The narrative further expands his dominion, stating that his armies consisted of jinn, men, and birds, all marshaled in perfect order. He commanded the wind, making it do his bidding, a power that allowed him to travel vast distances in the blink of an eye. This portrayal underscores a key theological point in Islam. All power and all miracles belong to God alone, who grants them to his chosen messengers as signs for humanity. Solomon's power was a constant testament not to his own greatness, but to the infinite power of the one who granted it. Similarly, the Hebrew Bible, primarily in the books of 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles, details the splendor of Solomon's reign. The narrative begins with his famous prayer to God, not for riches or long life, but for wisdom. "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil." 1 Kings 3:9. God is so pleased with this selfless request that he grants him not only unparalleled wisdom, but also the wealth and honor he did not ask for. The Bible describes his wisdom as encyclopedic and divine in origin. "And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure, and breadth of mind, like the sand on the seashore. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He spoke also of beasts, and of birds, and of reptiles, and of fish. 1 Kings 4:29-33. While this passage doesn't explicitly state he spoke with them in a conversational sense like the Quran does, it points to a profound, almost supernatural understanding of the natural world. It implies a knowledge that goes far beyond mere biology, touching upon the very essence and nature of these creatures. His wisdom was so legendary that it drew seekers from across the known world, most famously the Queen of Sheba, who came to test him with hard questions and left utterly breathless, admitting that the reality of his wisdom and prosperity far exceeded the fabulous reports she had heard. In both traditions, Solomon's greatest undertaking was the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, a house for the worship of the one God. This act was the physical manifestation of his divinely ordained purpose. The Bible describes its construction in meticulous detail, a work of immense beauty and craftsmanship. The Quran adds the dimension of the Jinn's involvement, describing them as laborers who worked under his command, building for him what he willed of lofty chambers, statues, basins as large as reservoirs, and stationary kettles. Saba 13. This convergence of human craftsmanship and supernatural labor symbolizes the nature of Solomon's kingdom itself, a place where the material and spiritual worlds intersected, governed by a single God-given wisdom. The temple was not just a building, it was the heart of his kingdom, the anchor of his power, and the ultimate expression of his submission to the divine. Both scriptures, in their unique ways, establish that Solomon's power was not his own. It was a trust, a test, and a sign for all people. It was a power rooted in knowledge, expressed in justice, and aimed at the glorification of God. The figure of a sage who communicates with the natural world is a powerful archetype that transcends any single tradition. While Solomon's story is unique in its scriptural detail, the echo of his gift can be heard in the lives of saints, mystics, and shamans from every corner of the earth. This reveals a universal human intuition that a state of spiritual purity brings one into harmony with all of creation, breaking down the artificial barriers we perceive between ourselves and the world around us. Perhaps the most famous parallel in the Western world is Saint Francis of Assisi, the 13th century Christian friar. The stories of his life are filled with accounts of him preaching to birds, taming a ferocious wolf, and referring to all of creation, the sun, the moon, animals, and even death, as his brothers and sisters. In one famous account, as he was traveling, he saw a great flock of birds and was moved to preach to them. He told his companions to wait for him while he went to preach to my sisters, the birds. The legends say the birds gathered around him, unafraid, and listened intently as he spoke of God's love for them, only flying away after he had given them his blessing. This was not seen as a mere eccentricity. For his followers, it was a sign that Francis had regained a portion of the innocent harmony that Adam had in the Garden of Eden before the fall, a state where humanity lived in peaceful communion with all creatures. Like Solomon, Francis's connection to animals was an extension of his profound humility and his overwhelming love for the Creator, which naturally overflowed into a love for all of creation. In the mystical traditions of Islam, known as Sufism, the universe is seen as a book filled with divine signs. Every atom, every leaf, every creature is constantly articulating the praises of God. The Sufi poet Rumi writes, "The speech of water, the speech of earth, and the speech of mud are perceived by the senses of the heart." For the Sufis, Solomon's gift was not just a historical miracle, but a representation of the state of the Insan al-Kamil, the perfect or complete human being. This is the individual whose inner senses have been so polished through spiritual practice and divine grace that they can perceive the inner reality of things. They can hear the tasbih, the glorification of God, that emanates from all things. Rumi suggests that this language is always present, but our own spiritual deafness, caused by the noise of our egos and worldly desires, prevents us from hearing it. Solomon, in his purity, was simply able to hear the symphony that is always playing. His communication with the hoopoe bird, for instance, which acted as his messenger, is seen not just as a story about a talking bird, but as a deep metaphor for how the purified soul can receive inspiration and knowledge from unexpected and seemingly humble sources in God's creation. This idea resonates deeply with many indigenous spiritual traditions around the world. In Native American cultures, for example, the belief in an interconnected web of life is central. Animals are not seen as lesser beings, but as teachers, spirit guides, and relatives. Shamans and medicine people enter altered states of consciousness to communicate with animal spirits, seeking guidance, healing, and wisdom. They understand that the wolf, the eagle, and the bear possess a wisdom that humanity has lost. This communication is based on deep listening, observation, and respect. It is a dialogue, not a monologue. This perspective reframes Solomon's ability not as a form of command over nature, but as a form of profound respect for it, an ability to enter into a sacred dialogue with the other intelligences that share our world. Similarly, in Eastern philosophies like Taoism and Zen Buddhism, there is a strong emphasis on living in harmony with the Tao, or the natural flow of the universe. The wise sage is one who does not impose his will upon the world, but acts in effortless accord with it. This requires a quiet mind and a deep intuitive understanding of the patterns and rhythms of nature. In this light, Solomon's rule over the wind is not the act of a magician bending the elements to his will, but of a sage so aligned with the cosmic flow that the elements naturally cooperate with his righteous intent. These diverse traditions, from the sermons of St. Francis to the poetry of Rumi and the wisdom of indigenous elders, all point to the same hidden truth. The power to communicate with creation is not about mastering a foreign language. It is about remembering our mother tongue, the language of the heart, of unity, and of shared existence under one creator. Connecting an ancient spiritual narrative to the modern world requires building a bridge between miracle and meaning, between faith and reason. The story of Solomon, with its blend of historical reign and supernatural power, invites us to explore its relevance through the lenses of history, science, and psychology. Doing so doesn't diminish its spiritual power, it enriches it, revealing timeless truths that resonate with our contemporary understanding of the world. Historically, the reign of King Solomon, dated to the 10th century BCE, is considered a golden age in the history of ancient Israel. While the scale of his wealth and empire as described in religious texts is a subject of archaeological debate, his era is widely recognized as a period of significant architectural development, international trade, and cultural flourishing. His kingdom was strategically located at the crossroads of major trade routes connecting Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Arabia. This fostered a cosmopolitan environment where knowledge, goods, and ideas were exchanged. In this context, Solomon's wisdom can be seen not just as a divine gift, but also as the fruit of a vibrant intellectual and cultural milieu. His ability to speak of all manner of plants and animals reflects the kind of encyclopedic knowledge that would have been highly prized in a king presiding over such a complex and international hub. His interactions with foreign dignitaries like the Queen of Sheba were not just tests of wit, but high-stakes diplomatic encounters. His wisdom was practical. It built alliances, managed resources, and administered justice. The supernatural elements of his story can be understood as a sacred narrative expressing the profound belief that this golden age was a direct result of divine blessing, a kingdom where earthly success was perfectly aligned with heavenly favor. From the perspective of modern science, the idea of speaking with animals has been transformed from pure myth to a fascinating field of study. Biologists and ethologists have uncovered incredibly complex communication systems among animals. The intricate dances of honeybees convey precise information about food sources. The songs of humpback whales contain complex, evolving syntactic structures. Primates have been taught sign language, demonstrating an ability for abstract thought and emotional expression. Researchers are even using artificial intelligence to decode the clicks of dolphins and the chirps of prairie dogs. While this is not the same as the conversational understanding Solomon possessed, it fundamentally challenges the old notion of humanity's absolute separation from and superiority over other creatures. Science is revealing that the animal world is not a silent backdrop to human drama, but a vibrant, buzzing world of information exchange. Solomon's story, in this light, can be seen as a spiritual allegory for the ultimate potential of interspecies understanding. It pushes us to ask, are we not hearing animals simply because we are not listening in the right way? Perhaps the language of birds is not one of words, but of recognizing patterns, understanding behaviors, and developing a deep, intuitive empathy. Psychologically, the narrative of Solomon offers rich symbolic meaning. The ability to understand the language of animals can be interpreted as a metaphor for being in touch with our own deepest instincts and intuition, the animal self that our modern rational minds often suppress. In many psychological frameworks, animals in dreams represent primal energies, hidden wisdom, and instinctual knowledge. To speak with them is to integrate these powerful, non-rational parts of our psyche, leading to a more whole and balanced personality. Solomon, the supremely wise judge, embodies this integration. His wisdom wasn't just intellectual, it was holistic, encompassing both the logical mind and the intuitive heart. Furthermore, his command over the Jinn, unseen, powerful, and often mischievous entities, can be seen as a metaphor for mastering one's own inner demons, the chaotic thoughts, destructive impulses, and hidden fears that can enslave us. His power was not to destroy them, but to harness their immense energy for a constructive purpose, like building the temple. This represents the pinnacle of self-mastery, not eradicating our inner chaos, but channeling it towards a higher sacred goal. Thus, the story of Solomon becomes a profound map of the human journey toward wisdom, a journey that requires historical awareness, scientific curiosity, and deep psychological integration. At the heart of Solomon's kingdom of wonders lies a lesson so simple, yet so profound, that it is often overlooked amidst the tales of talking animals and enslaved spirits. The spiritual core of his story is not about the acquisition of power, but about the nature of true wisdom and the humility it demands. It is a lesson for every soul, in every age, who seeks not just to live, but to live with purpose and meaning. The central truth is this: true power is a function of submission, not of control. Solomon was the most powerful king on earth precisely because he understood that he was, first and foremost, a servant of God. His every action, from judging a dispute between two mothers to building the great temple, was framed by his relationship with the divine. The wind did not obey him because he was a master of aerodynamics. It obeyed him because he was aligned with the will of the one who created the wind. The animals did not speak to him because he was a clever linguist. They spoke to him because his heart was pure enough to hear the voice of the Creator in all of creation. This is the great paradox of spiritual power. It is found not by puffing up the ego, but by dissolving it in the presence of a reality far greater than oneself. From this flows the practical lesson of humility. In the story of the ant, Solomon, the ruler of an empire, at the head of an unstoppable army, chooses to listen to the smallest of his subjects. He does not dismiss her. He does not see her as insignificant. He recognizes her existence, honors her fear, and changes his course. This is the ultimate gesture of a wise ruler and a truly humble soul. It teaches us that wisdom does not mean knowing everything. It means being willing to learn from anything and anyone. How often in our own lives do we dismiss the small voices? The quiet suggestion of a subordinate, the unspoken needs of a child, the gentle tug of our own conscience. We march on with our own grand plans, our own armies of ambition, and risk crushing the very things that give life its texture and meaning. Solomon's example calls us to cultivate a listening heart. How can we apply this in our own lives? It begins with stillness. We live in a world of constant noise, external noise from our devices, and internal noise from our own anxious thoughts. To hear the language of birds, we must first learn to be quiet. This can be as simple as spending a few minutes each day in nature, without a phone, simply observing, watching the intricate work of an ant, listening to the various calls of birds, feeling the wind on our skin. This is not just a relaxation technique. It is a spiritual practice. It is an act of decentering the self and acknowledging the vast, intelligent, and miraculous world that exists outside our own concerns. Secondly, it means practicing active empathy. Solomon understood the ant because he could imagine her world. We can practice this by trying to truly understand the perspectives of others, especially those we disagree with or consider lesser than ourselves. This is the foundation of justice, another cornerstone of Solomon's reign. To judge fairly, he had to listen beyond the words and perceive the truth in the heart. Finally, the ultimate lesson is one of gratitude. Solomon's immediate reaction upon hearing the ant was to thank God for the favor of this perception. He recognized his gift not as a right, but as a grace. When we experience moments of beauty, flashes of insight, or feelings of connection, our practice should be the same, to turn the heart towards the source of all gifts in gratitude. This creates a virtuous cycle. Gratitude opens the heart to greater perception, which in turn leads to deeper gratitude. This is the hidden engine of Solomon's power, and it is a power accessible to every one of us, not through magic, but through the sincere and humble practice of being still, listening deeply, and giving thanks. And so, our journey through the gilded halls and whispering valleys of Solomon's kingdom comes to a close. But the story does not end. For the legacy of a prophet is not a monument of stone, but a path etched into the heart of humanity. We have seen that Solomon's magnificent power was not born of ambition, but of surrender. His unparalleled wisdom was not the product of a sharp intellect alone, but of a listening heart. He commanded the wind and spirits, yes, but only after he learned to command himself. He spoke with the animals, true, but only because he first learned to listen to the silent whisper of God in all things. The central truth we have uncovered is that the universe is not a dead collection of resources for us to exploit, but a living, breathing testament to a sacred reality. It is a symphony of praise, a chorus of existence, and we have been given the choice to either add our own discordant noise of ego and greed, or to learn our part in the grand harmony. Solomon's life is the ultimate proof that the path to true authority, true peace, and true wisdom lies in finding our place within this cosmic choir. It is the path of the humble guardian, not the arrogant conqueror. It is the realization that the ant in the valley has as much a right to its life and its voice as the king on the throne. Let this be the message of hope and inspiration we carry forward. In a world that often feels chaotic and fragmented, where we are increasingly isolated from nature and from each other, the wisdom of Solomon calls us back to a state of profound connection. It reminds us that there is a language deeper than words, a wisdom hidden in the silence, and a power that comes not from taking, but from giving thanks. The final lesson is that the greatest kingdom is not of this world. It is the kingdom of a peaceful heart, a grateful soul, and a spirit in tune with the rhythm of creation. This is the hidden power of Solomon, and it is a treasure that awaits any who have the courage to seek it. If this reflection has touched your heart and expanded your understanding, join our community for more journeys in search of the hidden truth in history and the human soul. In our channel, we explore the great questions of life, from the stories of ancient prophets to the insights of modern science, seeking the wisdom that unites us all. We believe that the knowledge we revive from ancestral sources can strengthen your spirit and illuminate your path. Your support is vital. We ask that you subscribe, share, like, and comment. This helps us reach more seekers of truth and builds a community dedicated to thoughtful exploration. We read all your comments. Your feedback inspires us and helps shape the future of our channel. May peace and light be with all of you. May we find wisdom and strength in our shared journey. Until the next video.